Get my 6. Guys, I mentioned about a week or so ago that once the heat and the humidity were gone for the year, we were going to get out of the office, which is my back property there, and we're going to get back out here in the field, in the real field, not the field behind my home, which at times there's quite a few oddities back there, potentially. But I'm talking about the real field, the forest, and particularly this area where I've been personally invited to come to implement my very unique potential Bigfoot Sasquatch research methods. And yeah, you hear this bird back here going off. I believe it's sounding a warning call. I just don't know who it's trying to warn, me or him, her, it, or they. So I'm going to tell you not specifically where I am, but I'm going to tell you the story and the history of the property where I am. It's a large property that was in a family for centuries. It was farmed. It's very close to a Civil War battleground where a sizable battle took place, sizable enough for many men to lose their lives. And it's in an area where both Union troops and Confederate troops crossed through the Blue Ridge Mountains regularly, trying to fight the North, of course, trying to make their way to Richmond, which is about 100 miles at most east of here. And of course the Confederate troops trying to hold off the North in this area so they couldn't, come down there en masse, which eventually happened. But so our messenger seems to have gotten quiet, and I've just taken on a very eerie sense of foreboding here. So the story goes that about, in the 1880s, or about 20 years or so after the Civil War, the children of the family that owned this property began seeing men, some in gray, some in blue. There was one in particular that they felt safe around, but there were others that they felt were malevolent or meant them harm. And then there were stories that had been passed down even before the war about seeing large bipedal creatures in this forest. We're in an area right now that probably was field or meadow back then. So you get my 6. If I need to turn the camera to show you views of anything of interest I come across, I will. I'm reaching into my pocket here because I want to read something to you. This is so ironic. Because I've been being asked to come out here for some time. I put it off until the heat and the humidity were gone. Let's get back in here. Now listen, this is a type of area where potentially, probably not potentially, but probably there are tons of unmarked graves, which means there could potentially be tons of lost souls, free spirits. It's getting really creepy in here. You get my 6. That means watch behind me. Watch for movement. I'm going to read you something. Oh, wow. Wow, yeah, I just certainly found hardcore factual evidence that this property used to be lived on but is now abandoned. Let me flip the phone so I can show you this as I come up on it. Sticking when I was getting ready to read back in my pocket, but I will read it to you, I promise. Check this out. So I'm making my way up the trail here, and we clearly see an old abandoned car. What's that? something over there. Something in those woods. Check out this car. Okay, oh, look at that. There's an old retainer wall. An old stone wall. Which means at one point, so my summation was correct, that this used to be a field. This is where they would have cleared the stones from the field to be able to plant and garden. And look at this. There's walnuts. Evidence of a home site. There's a walnut tree. So this would have been the location of one of the original dwellings. Up through, what's that, guys? What do you think, 1930s? Is that car from the 20s or the 30s? So that would have been around the time the families abandoned this particular part of the property because of all the apparitions they were seeing. Ghosts of Civil War soldiers and potentially Bigfoot Sasquatch. Okay guys, continue to get my 6. I'm going to read you, this is a comment, it's a lengthy comment, but it's a comment worthy of being read. And you know, part of my very unique potential Bigfoot Sasquatch research methods and all things other paranormal methods is to simply come out into the field, come to an area where there may or may not be the presence of him, her, it, or they, or other things, and tell a creepy story, talk about creepy things, and see if we can lure what may or may not be out there in close enough to us to capture them on film because they're curious about the story, they want to hear it. Now, why am I so special? Why did I get the invitation to come up here and do this kind of thing? Is it because my research technologies are so wonderful and so effective? Well, yeah, but there's more to it than just that. Because we've caught things on camera that are unexplainable. And some things are clearly what they do seem to be. Geez, it's been almost 2 years now since that video of discovering the lair and capturing that thing. Coming up on the 2-year anniversary, and I'm thinking about going back to that location on the anniversary. But listen, I guess these folks found me on YouTube. They saw me on YouTube. They realized we lived within an hour of each other. But it's more than just that. It's because there are those of us who can hear and who can see and who can feel what others can't. What's that tell you? All right, so I got a comment from Cindy Rich Russo. Cindy spelled with an S, S-E-N-D-Y. Very unique way of spelling Cindy. Cindy gets it. She left this comment on a video where I talked about such things. Those of us who can see and hear and feel what others can't. This is why I'm in this forest right now, and that's why many of you are going to be putting timestamps of the things you do see and hear or sense that others can't. And my spidey senses are going off big time right here. So let's do like a 360 thing, see what we may or may not catch. Cindy said, the subdivision in which I grew up was built on a hill after an historic flood that occurred when I was 3 months old. Not all of the Civil War soldiers' graves were moved, as we found pieces of caskets and buttons attached to small remnants of either blue or gray cloth. So Cindy's subdivision was built on a hill under the soil of which, obviously, there were many Civil War soldiers buried. And then a big flood came when Cindy was about 3 that unearthed a lot of the stuff that they thought had been moved before they built the subdivision, but obviously not. Okay, Cindy says, when I was very young, I'm 52 now, so she's about 4 years older than me, I would play under the watchful eye of a kind man in a gray uniform whose presence kept the 2 men in blue uniforms from attacking me. It's a very similar situation to what's going on in this area. I tell you guys, the South, so much history, so many souls perished I'm not turning my back to that thing, whatever it was. Okay, Cindy continues. Okay. My parents just thought I had an imaginary friend. When I was old enough to start school, let me switch arms here. When I was old enough to start school, and I drew a picture of me playing near the friendly soldier and the two mean soldiers standing afar off, the teacher complimented my drawing and asked me to describe what I'd drawn. When I did, that prompted the fear campaign of malarkey from the box thinkers. Trust me, I know how about they want to keep us all inside those boxes. Okay, the fear campaign of malarkey from the box thinkers in charge of the one school in the one caution light town. I repressed my ability to see what the fearmongers couldn't, and life went on. Flash forward to now. I sometimes can catch a glimpse here and there and trust my gut to let me know if the energy I'm sensing is friend or foe. I use my energy to protect me if I sense ill intent and am careful not to be prompted to anger for bad entities to feed on. So obviously Cindy's an empath as well. Tell you guys and girls, our energy and the energy that we choose to allow enter our minds and our bodies and our spirits and our souls is effective for either bad or good. So we must be careful which energies we choose. Cindy gets that. And I'm getting it more and more as I age and as I embrace this whole concept of being an empath. As much as possible, I have a peaceful coexistence with those I encounter as I go about my business. I heed warnings. That come in subtle forms. Perhaps that was one. I pay attention to birds. Pay attention to birds, certain insects doing certain unusual things. And this is all part of the spirit world. Oh, this is how the spirit world communicates different things to me. I've even encountered such in large metropolitan cities in front of other people who had mixed reactions to seeing a dragonfly light on the handle of my grandson's wheelchair and seemed to nod at me, or a crow flying in to perch on a parking meter and looking right at me as it sounded off and then go to my car hood. When I checked the fluids before heading back home, I was low on coolant once and my serpentine belt was frayed another time. Life is a walk. Some walk in strife, others in peace. Some walk in ignorance or fear, while others walk in wisdom and humility. I hope this helps you find comfort in your walking. What does, Cindy? Comfort in knowing there are so many of us out there who possess certain abilities that inside the box thinkers want to medicate out of us or therapy out of us or whatever. But I'm certainly feeling a lot of history here in this area. Obviously, it's still a little more human than I'd prefer. It's not hot, it's just humid. This is Virginia and it is still September. But I'm gonna do my best to make it out here several times this fall. And there's gonna be times I come out and I don't make videos, or I might record a lot of footage that I don't actually upload to YouTube if I feel that it's, there's nothing there, I didn't get anything. But of course, we would have never seen the him, her, it, or they that we captured almost 2 years ago now, again in that video from the lair, if I hadn't uploaded that video, because I never saw that thing. I had no idea that thing was out there until everybody started time stamping it. And then I went back and watched it, and I felt the hair on my arm stand up, knowing I was that close to whatever the heck that thing was. Potentially 2 of them. So maybe I will upload all the footage from out here this fall, going into the winter. It's going to be interesting to see what we find. I will be looking for unmarked graves. I know how to detect them. I know how to find them. I know how to spot them. I've been finding them for over 30 years throughout the Appalachian Mountains and in the Blue Ridge Mountains. They're all over. If people had any clue how many people were just buried out here, because, you know, especially here in the Blue Ridge, in this part of the Blue Ridge, it's known that Native Americans were living here between 14 and 15,000 years ago. So I hope you guys are excited to get back out in the field with me here this fall. Go on some of these rendezvous with me by way of video. Let's see what we may or may not find out here. We'll see you for more next time.